Dr. Sarah Chun stood by the wooden fence and watched the big brown horse. His name was Thunder. He was usually a calm and friendly animal. But today, something was wrong. Thunder stood at the entrance of the indoor arena. His eyes were wide open. His nose was moving fast. He was breathing hard. He looked scared. But Sarah could not see anything scary. There was nothing unusual near the arena entrance. Marcus Rodriguez owned the stable. He called Sarah 3 days ago. He was worried and confused. 3 of his horses were acting strange. They all refused to go inside the indoor arena. They would walk everywhere else without problems. But when they reached the arena entrance, they stopped. They would not move forward. Some of them even tried to run away. Marcus tried everything he could think of. He checked the arena floor. Maybe there was a hole or something sharp. He found nothing. He checked the walls. Maybe there was a strange smell or sound. Everything looked normal. He asked other horse trainers for advice. Nobody could help him. Finally, someone told him to call Sarah. She was a special kind of animal doctor. She studied horse eyes and how horses see the world. Sarah arrived at the stable early in the morning. She brought special equipment with her. She had cameras, lights, and tools to examine horse eyes. Marcus led her to Thunder first. Thunder was the biggest and strongest horse at the stable. He was a racehorse. He had won many competitions. But now, he acted like a scared baby horse. Sarah spoke softly to Thunder. She touched his neck gently. The horse relaxed a little bit. Then Sarah began to examine his eyes. She used a bright light to look inside. She used a special camera to take pictures. She checked every part of Thunder's eyes carefully. Marcus stood nearby and watched. He hoped Sarah would find something wrong. Maybe Thunder had an eye disease. That would be easy to fix with medicine. But Sarah found no disease. Thunder's eyes were healthy and strong. She stepped back and looked at Thunder's whole head. Something interesting caught her attention. Horse eyes were very different from human eyes. Thunder's eyes were on the sides of his head, not in the front like human eyes. This meant he could see in almost all directions at the same time. Sarah explained this to Marcus. She told him that horses can see almost 350 degrees around their body. Humans can only see about 180 degrees in front of them. Horses have only 2 small blind spots. One spot is right in front of their nose. The other spot is directly behind their tail. Everything else they could see without turning their head. Marcus listened carefully. He had owned horses for more than 20 years, but he never really thought about how different their eyes were from human eyes. Sarah continued explaining. She said that horses developed this special vision over millions of years. Wild horses needed to see predators coming from any direction. A lion or wolf could attack from the side or from behind. Horses that could see in all directions survived better. They could run away faster. Over time, all horses developed eyes on the sides of their heads. This made Marcus think. Maybe Thunder was seeing something that humans could not see. Maybe the problem was not inside Thunder's eyes. Maybe the problem was what Thunder was looking at. Sarah nodded. She was thinking the same thing. She asked Marcus if she could set up cameras around the stable. She wanted to record the horses for a few days. She wanted to see exactly what they did and when they got scared. Marcus agreed immediately. He wanted to solve this mystery. His business was suffering. Customers were starting to complain. Some of them wanted to move their horses to different stables. Sarah spent the rest of the day setting up cameras. She put them in different positions around the arena entrance. She put them up high and down low. She made sure they would record everything. Over the next 3 days, Sarah watched the camera recordings carefully. She saw something interesting. All 3 problem horses stopped at exactly the same spot. They always hesitated at the same place near the arena entrance. This was an important clue. If the horses were just scared for no reason, they would stop at different places. But they all stopped at the same spot. This meant something at that spot was bothering them. Sarah went back to the stable. She stood at the exact spot where the horses stopped. She looked around carefully. She looked up, down, left, and right. She tried to see what the horses were seeing, but everything looked normal to her human eyes. The lighting was good. The floor was clean. The walls were painted white. There was nothing scary or unusual. Then Sarah remembered something she had learned in veterinary school. She remembered that horses and humans see light differently. She started researching this topic on her computer. She read scientific papers and studies. She learned amazing facts about horse vision that most people did not know. Horses have something special in their eyes called the tapetum lucidum. This is a layer of tissue behind the eye. It reflects light back through the eye a second time. This helps horses see much better in the dark than humans can. This is why horse eyes glow in photographs when you use a camera flash. The light bounces off the tapetum lucidum and comes back out. But Sarah learned something even more interesting. Horses might see flickering light that humans cannot see. Human eyes see smooth light if something flickers more than 60 times per second. But some research suggested that horses might see flickers up to 80 or even 100 times per second. This was a big difference. Sarah looked up at the ceiling of the arena entrance. There were fluorescent light bulbs hanging there. These were old-style bulbs, not the new LED lights. Old fluorescent bulbs flicker constantly. They turn on and off 120 times every second. To human eyes, this looks like smooth, steady light. But to horse eyes, it might look like a strobe light at a dance club. It might flicker and flash constantly. Sarah felt excited. She might have found the answer. She needed to test this idea. She brought special equipment to the stable the next day. She brought cameras that could record very fast, much faster than normal cameras. These cameras could record 240 pictures every second! This would show if the lights were really flickering. Sarah set up the camera and recorded the arena entrance for several minutes. Then she went home and looked at the recording on her computer. She played it back in slow motion. What she saw made her smile. The fluorescent lights were flickering constantly. The light turned bright, then dim, then bright again over and over. The shadows on the floor moved and jumped. 2 human eyes, watching in real time. Everything looked smooth and normal. But in slow motion, she could see what horses might be seeing every time they looked at the arena entrance. The next day, Sarah showed the recording to Marcus. His mouth dropped open in surprise. He could not believe what he was seeing. The arena entrance looked like it was flashing and strobing constantly. The shadows jumped around like living things. Marcus understood immediately. If horses could see this flickering, of course they would be scared to enter. It would look dangerous and confusing to them. Sarah explained that this was just the beginning of the mystery. Horse vision was different from human vision in many other ways, too. Their eyes saw colors differently. They saw movement differently. They even saw some types of light that humans could not see at all. Over millions of years, horses developed vision that was perfect for surviving in the wild. But in the modern world, with artificial lights and man-made buildings, their special vision sometimes caused problems that humans could not understand. Marcus asked Sarah what they should do. Could they fix this problem? Sarah smiled and said yes. The solution was actually quite simple. They needed to replace the old fluorescent bulbs with new LED lights. LED lights do not flicker the same way. They would look steady and calm to horse eyes, just like they look to human eyes. Marcus said he would change all the lights immediately. But Sarah had more ideas. She wanted to investigate further. If the lights were causing problems, what other things might be bothering horses that humans could not see? She asked Marcus if she could do more tests at the stable. Marcus agreed happily. He wanted to learn everything possible about how his horses saw the world. This knowledge could help him take better care of them. It could also help other horse owners who were having similar problems. Sarah realized that this investigation was going to be more interesting than she expected. She had spent years studying horse eyes in veterinary school and in her medical practice. But she had never really thought deeply about how different the horse's view of the world was from her own. Horses and humans lived together for thousands of years. They worked together and helped each other. But they were seeing 2 completely different versions of the same world. And humans had never really noticed this until now. Sarah returned to the stable 1 week later with boxers of new LED light bulbs. Marcus had already bought them based on her recommendation. Together, they spent the afternoon replacing every old fluorescent bulb in the arena and near the entrance. The new LED lights looked almost the same to human eyes. Maybe they were a little brighter and clearer. But the real difference would be in what the horses could see. The next morning, Marcus sent Sarah a video message on his phone. She opened it and smiled. The video showed Thunder walking calmly into the arena without any hesitation. He did not stop. He did not look scared. He walked straight inside like nothing had ever been wrong. Marcus was laughing in the video. He said the other two horses also entered the arena without any fear. The mystery was solved. But Sarah's mind was full of new questions. The flickering lights had bothered the horses, but humans never noticed. What else were horses seeing that humans missed? She decided to study this topic more carefully. She went to the university library and searched for research papers about horse vision. What she found amazed her. Scientists had studied horse eyes for many years. They discovered that horses see colors very differently from humans. Human eyes have 3 types of color sensors. These sensors detect red, green, and blue light. The human brain mixes these 3 colors to create all the other colors people see. This is called trichromatic vision. But horses only have 2 types of color sensors. They can see blue and yellow very well, but they have trouble seeing red and green. To a horse, red and green look almost the same. They both look like shades of yellow or brown or gray. This is called dichromatic vision. It is similar to how some colorblind humans see the world. Sarah thought about what this meant in practical terms. Many horse jumps at competitions were painted with red and green poles. The colors looked bright and clear to human eyes. The pattern was easy to see. But to a horse, those red and green poles might look almost the same color. The jump would look flat and confusing. The horse might not understand where to jump or how high the jump was. She also learned that horses can see ultraviolet light. Humans cannot see UV light at all. It is invisible to human eyes, but horse eyes can detect it. Many things reflect UV light in patterns that are invisible to humans. White fences might glow brightly in UV light. Some types of grass reflect more UV than others. Even some fabrics and clothes reflect UV light in unusual ways. Sarah realized that horses might be seeing patterns and colors all around them that humans never noticed. The human world and the horse world overlapped, but they were not the same. A stable or arena that looked plain and simple to human eyes might look bright and patterned to horse eyes. Some horses might find these UV patterns beautiful or comforting. Other horses might find them confusing or scary. Sarah wanted to test these ideas with real horses. She needed to find a horse that was having problems that might be related to color vision. She did not have to wait long. 2 days later, she got a phone call from a woman named Elena. Elena was a famous dressage trainer. Dressage is a type of horse training that looks like dancing. The horses learn to move in beautiful, controlled ways. Elena's problem was with her best horse, a white mare named Moonlight. Moonlight was a champion. She had won many competitions and prizes. But recently, she started refusing to jump over certain obstacles. Elena was frustrated. She thought Moonlight was being stubborn or disobedient. She had tried different training methods. Nothing worked. Moonlight still refused the same jumps. Sarah drove to Elena's training facility the next day. It was a beautiful place with large arenas and fancy buildings. Elena met her at the entrance. She looked tired and worried. She said that Moonlight's behavior was hurting her reputation as a trainer. People were starting to think she did not know how to work with horses anymore. Elena led Sarah to the outdoor arena where Moonlight was practicing. The horse was beautiful. Her coat was pure white and shiny. Her movements were graceful and strong. Elena pointed to a jump in the corner of the arena. It was painted with red and green poles in an alternating pattern. The colors were bright and looked striking against the sand. Sarah watched as Elena tried to guide Moonlight toward the jump. The horse walked forward confidently, but as she got closer to the jump, she slowed down. Her steps became hesitant. Finally, she stopped completely, about 10 feet away from the jump. She would not go any closer. Elena sighed and patted the horse's neck. She said, "This happened every time with this particular jump." Sarah asked Elena what other jumps Moonlight had trouble with. Elena thought for a moment. She said that Moonlight usually refused jumps that were painted with multiple colors, especially red and green together. But she had no problem with jumps that were painted all blue or all yellow. Sarah nodded. This fit perfectly with what she had learned about dichromatic vision in horses. Sarah asked if she could borrow some special filters from her car. These filters made human eyes see colors the way dichromatic animals see them. She put the filters up to her eyes and looked at the red and green jump. The difference was dramatic. Through the filters, the red and green poles looked almost exactly the same color. They all looked like a muddy, yellow-brown shade. The pattern that was so clear and obvious without the filters almost disappeared with the filters on. Sarah handed the filters to Elena and told her to look at the jump. Elena put them up to her eyes. She gasped in surprise. She said she could barely tell where one pole ended and the next one began. Everything blended together into one confusing shape. Sarah explained that this was probably very similar to what Moonlight was seeing. Elena took off the filters and looked at Sarah with wide eyes. She said she had been training horses for 15 years. She had never known that horses saw colors so differently from humans. She felt terrible. She had been getting angry at Moonlight for refusing a jump that the horse literally could not see clearly. Moonlight was not being stubborn or difficult. She was being smart and careful. She did not want to jump towards something she could not understand. Sarah suggested a simple solution. They could repaint the jump using colors that horses can see clearly. Blue and yellow would work well. These colors looked very different to dichromatic vision. A horse would have no trouble seeing where each pole was and how the jump was shaped. Elena agreed immediately. She said she would repaint not just this jump, but all the jumps in her arena. But Sarah had another idea first. She wanted to check if there were other vision problems affecting the horses at this facility. She had brought a special camera that could photograph ultraviolet light. This would show if there were UV patterns that horses could see but humans could not. Sarah took pictures of the arena floor, the walls, and the fences. Then she connected the camera to her laptop computer so they could look at the photos together. Elena was shocked by what she saw. In regular light, the white fence around the arena looked plain and uniform. But in UV light, the fence had bright spots and dark spots all over it. Some sections glowed brilliantly. Other sections were dull and dark. The pattern was random and chaotic. Sarah explained that horses could see these UV patterns. Some horses might find them interesting to look at, but other horses might find them distracting or confusing. The arena that looked neat and professional to human eyes actually looked messy and cluttered to horse eyes. Elena shook her head in disbelief. She said she had spent thousands of dollars making her facility look beautiful. But she had only been making it beautiful for humans, not for horses. They looked at more UV photos together. The sand in the arena looked mostly uniform. That was good. But some of the painted decorations on the walls glowed very brightly in UV light. One wall had flowers painted on it. In regular light, the flowers looked pale pink. In UV light, they glowed like neon signs. Sarah said that horses walking past that wall would see those flowers glowing very brightly. Some horses might find this startling or confusing. Elena asked what she should do about all these UV patterns. Sarah said there was no perfect answer. Some UV reflection was natural and unavoidable. Sunlight contains UV light, and many natural materials reflect it. Horses had evolved to see UV light because it helped them in the wild. They could see certain plants better. They could judge distances more accurately in some situations. UV vision was not bad for horses. It was just different from human vision. But Sarah suggested that Elena could be more thoughtful about what materials she used in the arena. She could avoid materials that glowed extremely brightly in UV light. She could test new paints and fences with a UV camera before installing them. She could create an environment that looked good to both human eyes and horse eyes. Elena thought this was an excellent idea. She said she would make these changes gradually over the next few months. Before Sarah left that day, Elena asked her an important question. She wanted to know why nobody had taught her about horse vision when she was learning to be a trainer. Sarah said that this was a good question. The science of horse vision was not new. Researchers had been studying it for decades. But somehow, this knowledge had not spread very far outside of university laboratories. Most horse trainers, owners, and even veterinarians did not know much about how differently horses saw the world. Sarah thought this was a shame. She thought this knowledge should be taught to everyone who worked with horses. It could solve so many problems. It could prevent so much frustration. It could help humans and horses understand each other better. She decided to do something about this. She would start giving talks and presentations about horse vision. She would share what she had learned with as many people as possible. That evening, Sarah sat in her apartment and thought about everything she had discovered. Humans and horses had lived together for more than 5,000 years. Horses had carried humans into battle. They had pulled plows to grow food. They had transported people and goods across continents. The entire development of human civilization had been shaped by the partnership between humans and horses. But throughout all this history, humans had never really understood what horses were seeing. They had never looked at the world through horse eyes. They had assumed horses saw the same things humans saw, just from a different angle. But this was completely wrong. Horses inhabited a different visual universe. They saw different colors, different movements, and even different types of light. Understanding this changed everything. Sarah's success at both Marcus's stable and Elena's training facility made her somewhat famous in the local horse community. People started calling her for advice. Horse owners sent her emails describing strange behaviors they could not explain. Many of them asked the same basic question: why does my horse act scared of things I cannot see? Sarah realized she needed help to answer all these questions. She contacted Dr. James Mitchell, a neuroscientist at the university. James studied how animal brains process vision. He was particularly interested in prey animals like horses, deer, and rabbits. These animals had different vision than predators like cats, dogs, and humans. Sarah thought James might want to collaborate on research about horse vision. She was right. James was very excited about the idea. They met at a coffee shop near the university to discuss their plans. James brought a thick folder full of research papers. He had been studying prey animal vision for 10 years. He said that horses had some of the most interesting eyes in the animal kingdom. Their vision was designed by evolution to do one specific thing very well: detect predators before the predators got too close. James explained that in the wild, horses lived in open grasslands. They spent most of their day eating grass with their heads down. This made them vulnerable to attacks from lions, wolves, and other predators. A horse that could detect a predator just 1 second earlier had a better chance of running away and surviving. Over millions of years, natural selection created horse vision that was extremely sensitive to movement. Sarah asked, "How sensitive?" James smiled and said they should do an experiment to find out. He had access to a research facility that worked with horses. They could test how well horses detected motion compared to humans. Sarah agreed enthusiastically. This was exactly the kind of research she wanted to do. 2 weeks later, they began their experiments at the research facility. They worked with a calm horse named Copper. Copper was used to being around scientists and equipment. He did not get nervous. This made him perfect for vision experiments. James set up several computer screens in Copper's stall. Each screen would display different patterns of movement. The experiment was simple. They would show Copper a screen with a still image. Then they would make something on the screen move very slightly. If Copper noticed the movement, he would turn his head to look at the screen. If he did not notice, he would ignore the screen and continue eating hay. By making the movements smaller and smaller, they could find out exactly how sensitive Copper's motion detection was. The results surprised even James, who had been studying an animal vision for years. Copper detected movements that were far too small for humans to see. In one test, they showed him an image of a field. They made one tiny dot move very slowly in the corner of the screen. The dot was so small and moved so slowly that Sarah and James did not see it at all. But Copper's head immediately turned toward the screen. His eyes locked onto that tiny moving dot. They did this test many times with different types of movements. Kappa detected almost all of them. He could see things moving hundreds of feet away in his peripheral vision. He could see movements in areas where his visual detail was very poor. He could not see what was moving clearly, but he always noticed that something was moving. James explained why this was so important for wild horses. Imagine a horse eating grass in a field. A lion is hiding in the tall grass 50 yards away. The lion moves its head slightly while watching the horse. The horse cannot see the details of the lion's face or body from that distance, but the horse's eyes detect that small movement immediately. The horse knows something moved in the grass. It raises its head and looks carefully. Maybe it sees the lion. Maybe it just sees the grass moving and decides to be safe and run away. Either way, detecting that tiny movement gave the horse a chance to survive. Sarah thought about what this meant for modern horses living with humans. Domestic horses no longer faced lions and wolves, but they still had the same eyes and the same motion-sensitive vision. This meant they were constantly detecting movements that humans never noticed. A bird flying far away, a plastic bag blowing in the wind, a leaf falling from a tree, a person moving behind a fence. 2 horses. These movements were clear and obvious. 2 humans. They were invisible or so small they were not worth noticing. This explains so much behavior that horse owners called spooking. When a horse suddenly jumped or ran away from nothing, people said the horse was being silly or dramatic. But the horse was not reacting to nothing. The horse was reacting to something real that humans simply could not see. The horse detected a movement that its evolutionary programming identified as a potential threat. The fact that the movement was actually just a bird or a plastic bag did not matter. The horse's eyes and brain had done their job by detecting the movement. Sarah and James decided to test another aspect of horse vision: how they used their eyes independently. Because horse eyes were on the sides of their head, each eye saw a different view. The left eye saw everything to the left side. The right, I saw everything to the right side. Only in a small area directly in front of the horse did the 2 views overlap and create binocular vision like humans have. They designed an experiment where 2 screens were set up on opposite sides of copper. Each screen would show different movements. They wanted to see if copper could detect movements on both sides at the same time. The answer was yes. Copper's left eye detected movement on the left screen while its right eye detected movement on the right screen. His brain processed both pieces of information simultaneously. This was very different from how human vision worked. Humans had to look directly at something to see it clearly. If something moved far to the side, humans had to turn their head to look at it. But horses could see and track movements on both sides of their body at the same time without moving their head at all. They were essentially watching 2 different movies simultaneously. One with each eye. James explained that this created some interesting challenges for horses. When a horse was walking forward, it had to switch from monocular vision to binocular vision for things directly ahead. This changed how the horse perceived depth and distance. Imagine walking through your house and having your depth perception change every few steps. This was normal for horses, but it required constant adjustment. This explained another common behavior that confused horse owners. When a horse approached something new, it often stopped and moved its head up and down or side to side. People thought the horse was being stubborn or cautious, but actually, the horse was moving its head to get different visual angles. It was switching between monocular and binocular vision. It was making sure it understood exactly where the object was and how far away it was before moving closer. Sarah and James spent weeks doing different experiments with Copper and other research horses. They tested how horses saw in bright light and dim light. They tested how horses judged distances. They tested how quickly horses could shift their attention from one movement to another. Every experiment revealed how sophisticated and specialized horse vision really was. One surprising discovery was about how horses saw human faces. Most scientists assumed that horses could not recognize human facial expressions very well because horses had such different eyes. But the experiments showed this was wrong. Horses could distinguish between happy faces and angry faces. They could tell when a human was looking at them versus looking away. They could even recognize individual human faces and remember them for months or years. This was remarkable, because horses saw human faces very differently than humans saw them. When a horse looked at a person's face from the side using monocular vision, the face looked flat and distorted. But when the horse brought the face into its binocular vision area directly in front, it could see depth and detail much better. Somehow, horse brains had learned to interpret human faces even though they looked different in monocular versus binocular vision. Sarah thoughts about the practical implications of all this research. Horse trainers needed to understand that horses were constantly processing motion information from all directions. A good trainer would create a calm environment where movements were predictable and A good trainer would also understand that when a horse stopped and moved its head around, it was not being stubborn. It was trying to see something clearly, using both types of vision. James was interested in publishing their research in scientific journals. But Sarah wanted to do more than just publish papers that other scientists would read. She wanted to share this information with regular people who owned and worked with horses. She wanted to create educational materials that anyone could understand. She wanted to change how people thought about horse behavior. They decided to do both. James would write academic papers for scientific journals. Sarah would create videos, articles, and presentations for horse owners. Together, they would bridge the gap between university research and practical horse care. They would make sure the science of horse vision actually helped real horses and real people. One evening, Sarah visited Marcus at his stable to tell him about the research she and James were doing. Marcus was very interested. He said that understanding how Thunder saw the world had completely changed how he managed his stable. He paid more attention to movement and lighting. He was more patient when horses seemed scared of things he could not see. He tried to create an environment that was calm and safe for horse eyes, not just human eyes. Marcus asked Sarah a question that made her think deeply. He asked whether all this scientific knowledge might take away some of the mystery and magic of working with horses. Sarah thought about this carefully before answering. She said that understanding horses better did not make them less magical. It made them more amazing. Horses had vision systems that had been refined by millions of years of evolution. They could see things humans could not imagine. They processed visual information in ways that were completely foreign to human brains. Understanding this made horses more impressive, not less. She told Marcus that knowledge created better relationships. When humans understood what horses were seeing, they stopped making unfair judgments. They stopped calling horses stupid or stubborn when horses reacted to things humans missed. They started working with horses as partners who experienced the world differently. This created trust and respect on both sides. Marcus nodded slowly. He said he had noticed this change in himself. Before Sarah explained horse vision to him, he sometimes got frustrated with his horses. He thought they were being difficult for no reason. Now he understood they always had a reason, even if he could not see it. This made him a more patient and effective horse owner. His horses seemed happier too. They were calmer and more confident because Marcus created an environment that made sense to their eyes. Sarah left the stable that evening feeling satisfied. The research was going well. The collaboration with James was productive and exciting. But more importantly, the knowledge they were creating was actually helping horses and their owners. This was what science should do. It should not just sit in academic journals. It should make real lives better. And that was exactly what was happening. 6 months after Sarah started her research with James, she was invited to speak at a large veterinary conference. The conference brought together animal doctors, horse trainers, and stable owners from across the country. Sarah was nervous. She had never spoken to such a large audience before. But she knew her message was important. She wanted to share what she had learned about horse vision with as many people as possible. The conference was held in a big hotel with many meeting rooms. Sarah's presentation was scheduled in the largest room because so many people wanted to attend. On the morning of her talk, she arrived early to set up her computer and check the projector. She had prepared dozens of slides with photos, diagrams, and videos. She wanted to make sure everything worked perfectly. As the room filled with people, Sarah felt her heart beating fast. She took deep breaths to calm herself. James was sitting in the front row. He gave her an encouraging smile. Marcus had driven 4 hours to attend. Elena was there too, along with several other horse owners Sarah had helped over the past months. Their presence gave her confidence. Sarah began her presentation by showing a simple photo of a horse's head. She asked the audience a question. What does this horse see when it looks at you? Most people had never really thought about this question. They assumed horses saw more or less what humans saw, but Sarah explained that this assumption was completely wrong. She spent the next hour showing them exactly how wrong it was. She showed diagrams of horse eyes compared to human eyes. She explained the 350-degree field of view. She showed videos of copper detecting tiny movements that humans could not see. She displayed photos taken with UV cameras that revealed patterns invisible to human vision. She showed the filters that simulated dichromatic color vision. With each new piece of information, she could see understanding dawning on people's faces. About halfway through her presentation, Sarah told the stories of Thunder, Moonlight, and the other horses she had helped. She explained how each behavioral problem had a vision-related cause that humans had missed. The flickering lights that scared Thunder. The confusing color patterns that bothered Moonlight. The UV reflections that distracted other horses. In each case, the solution was simple once humans understood what horses were actually seeing. Then Sarah made her most important point. She said that these were not rare or unusual cases. She said that many so-called behavioral problems in horses were actually vision problems. Horses were not being stubborn, difficult, or irrational. They were responding normally to things humans could not perceive. The problem was not with the horses. The problem was with human understanding. She showed a video that James had created. The video showed the same arena from two perspectives. The left side showed what a human would see. Everything looked calm and normal. The right side showed a simulation of what a horse might see. The lights flickered. UV patterns glowed on the fences. Small movements in the distance were magnified and obvious. Colors looked different. The difference between the two sides was dramatic. The audience watched in stunned silence. Sarah explained that this simulation was not perfect. Nobody could know exactly what horses saw because nobody could get inside a horse's brain. But based on scientific research about horse eyes and vision, this simulation was probably close to reality. And if horses did see something like this, their behavior made much more sense. A horse that refused to enter an arena full of flickering lights was being smart, not stubborn. After the simulation video ended, Sarah paused and looked at the audience. She said that this knowledge should change how people trained horses, designed stables, and judged horse behavior. She said that every horse trainer should learn basic vision science. Every stable should be designed with horse vision in mind. Every piece of equipment, from jumps to fences, should be tested to see what it looks like to horse eyes. But Sarah also acknowledged that this would not be easy. Humans naturally saw the world through human eyes. It was hard to remember that other animals saw things differently. It required constant effort and attention. It required humility to admit that human vision was limited and that horses might be detecting real things that humans missed. When Sarah finished speaking, the room was quiet for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Within seconds, the entire audience was applauding. Many people stood up. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. She had been worried that people might be skeptical or resistant. But instead, they were enthusiastic and grateful. They had been waiting for this information. They had been struggling with problems they did not understand. Now they had answers. After the presentation, dozens of people came to talk to Sarah. They told her stories about their own horses. They described behaviors they had never understood. Now, with new knowledge about horse vision, those behaviors made sense. A trainer named Patricia described how her horse always hesitated at a specific corner of the indoor arena. After Sarah's presentation, Patricia realized that corner had a window. The sun came through that window at certain times of day and created moving shadows on the floor. To Patricia's human eyes, the shadows were barely noticeable. But to her horse's motion-sensitive vision, those shadows probably looked like threatening movements. Another man named Robert owned a trail riding business. His horses sometimes refused to cross certain bridges. Robert had always thought the horses were afraid of heights or water. But now he wondered if the problem was visual. Maybe the boards on the bridge created confusing depth cues for horse eyes. Maybe the pattern of light and shadow made it hard for horses to tell where it was safe to step. Robert said he would investigate this possibility and make changes if needed. An older woman named Linda approached Sarah with tears running down her face. She said she had been training horses for 30 years. She had punished horses many times for spooking at things she could not see. She had thought they were being foolish or dramatic. Now, she understood that they had been reacting to real stimuli. Linda said she felt terrible about the times she had been impatient or angry with horses. Sarah hugged her and said that guilt was not useful. The important thing was that Linda now had better knowledge. She could make better decisions going forward. This interaction with Linda made Sarah think about an important ethical issue. If horses saw the world so differently from humans, did humans have a responsibility to create environments that made sense to horse vision? She believed the answer was yes. Humans had domesticated horses thousands of years ago. Humans had changed horses' lives completely. Humans made decisions about where horses lived, what they ate, and what work they did. Therefore, humans had a moral obligation to make those decisions based on accurate understanding of horse needs, including their visual needs. After the conference, Sarah received hundreds of emails from people who had attended her presentation or heard about it from others. Many people asked the same question: how can I learn to see the world through my horse's eyes? This gave Sarah an idea. She contacted a friend who worked at a technology company. Together, they started developing a smartphone app that would simulate horse vision. The app would use the phone's camera to show what a horse might see. It would adjust colors to simulate dichromatic vision. It would show you V patterns if the phone's camera could detect them. It would highlight small movements that horse eyes would notice, but human eyes might miss. Users could point their phone at their stable, arena, or trail and see it through horse eyes. This would help them identify potential problems and create better environments for their horses. Developing the app took several months. Sarah worked with the technology company to make sure the science was accurate. She tested early versions with Marcus, Elena, and other horse owners. They suggested improvements and pointed out features that would be useful. James consulted on the vision science to ensure the simulations were realistic. Finally, the app was ready to launch. Sarah announced it on social media and through horse magazines. She offered it for free because she wanted as many people as possible to use it. She hoped it would spread knowledge about horse vision far beyond what she could do through presentations and articles alone. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people downloaded the app in the first week. Sarah received messages from horse owners all over the world. People sent her photos and videos showing what they discovered when they looked at their stables through the app. Many people were shocked by what they saw. Their beautiful, well-maintained facilities looked completely different through simulated horse vision. One woman in Australia sent Sarah a video. She had used the app to look at her jumping course. Several jumps that looked fine too. Human eyes created confusing visual patterns for horse eyes. She realized why her horses always hesitated at certain jumps, but not others. She thanked Sarah for the app and said it would change how she designed her courses from now on. A man in England used the app in his stable and discovered that the walls reflected UV light in strange patterns. His horses often seemed distracted or nervous in certain areas of the stable. Now he understood why. He planned to repaint the walls with materials that did not reflect UV light as strongly. Stories like these made Sarah feel proud and satisfied. The app was doing exactly what she hoped it would do. It was helping people understand their horses better. It was creating more thoughtful, vision-aware horse care around the world. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. There was still so much to learn about horse vision and so many people who needed this knowledge. James suggested they write a book together about horse vision for general readers. Sarah loved this idea. The book could include everything they had learned, along with practical advice for horse owners. It could include photos, diagrams, and stories. It could reach people who would never attend a veterinary conference or read a scientific paper. James would write the scientific chapters. Sarah would write about her experiences helping horses and their owners. Together, they would create something useful and accessible. While planning the book, Sarah continued to help individual horses and owners. Each case taught her something new. She learned that some horses adapted better to artificial environments than others. She learned that younger horses seemed to adjust more easily to things like flickering lights, while older horses were more sensitive. She learned that every horse was an individual with slightly different vision capabilities and preferences. One particularly interesting case involved a racehorse named Lightning. Lightning was extremely fast, but sometimes ran off the track during races. His trainers could not understand why. Sarah examined Lightning and tested his vision. She discovered that his motion detection was even more sensitive than most horses. During races, when other horses ran beside him, Lightning's peripheral vision was overwhelmed by movement. He sometimes lost track of where the track was, because he was so focused on the moving horses around him. Sarah could not change Lightning's natural vision, but she worked with his trainers to help Lightning focus better during races. They practiced running in groups more often. They taught Lightning to pay attention to visual cues on the track itself, not just the other horses. They also made sure Lightning's blinkers were properly fitted to reduce some of the overwhelming peripheral motion. These changes helped, and Lightning's performance improved. Every horse Sarah met reinforced her belief that understanding vision was essential to understanding behavior. Eyes were not just organs that let animals see. Eyes shaped how animals experienced the entire world. Horses, with their wide-angle, motion-sensitive, dichromatic vision lived in a different perceptual reality than humans with their narrow, detail-focused trichromatic vision. Neither way of seeing was better or worse. They were just different, and understanding those differences created better relationships between species. 2 years after Sarah first watched Thunder refuse to enter the arena, she stood at the same fence at Meadowbrook Stables. The stable looked almost the same as it had that day. But everything had changed. Thunder grazed peacefully in the paddock. His eyes moved constantly, scanning his surroundings as evolution had programmed him to do. But now, Sarah understood what he was seeing. She understood his world in a way she never had before. Marcus walked over to join her at the fence. He carried 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Sarah and smiled. They stood together in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the horses. Then Marcus spoke. He said something that Sarah thought about often afterward. He said that understanding horse vision had changed his entire relationship with his animals. For 20 years, he had worked with horses every day. He thought he knew them well, but he had been seeing them through human eyes, both literally and figuratively. Marcus explained that once he started trying to see the world the way horses saw it, everything became clearer. When a horse acted nervous or scared, Marcus no longer assumed the horse was being difficult. Instead, he asked himself what the horse might be seeing that he was missing. Usually, he could figure it out. A moving shadow, a flickering light, a UV pattern on a fence. Once he identified the cause, he could either remove it or help the horse feel comfortable with it. Sarah nodded. She had heard similar things from many horse owners over the past 2 years. Her app had been downloaded more than 50,000 times. She received messages almost every day from people around the world sharing their experiences. The knowledge about horse vision was spreading. It was changing how people thought about horses and how they cared for them. Elena had become one of the strongest advocates for vision-aware horse training. She completely redesigned her training facility based on what she learned. She replaced all her jumps with colors that horses could easily distinguish. She tested all her arena materials with UV cameras. She adjusted her lighting to eliminate flicker. She even changed how she taught her students. Now, the first thing she taught new riders was basic horse vision science. She wanted them to understand what their horses could see before they tried to train them. Elena told Sarah that this approach made her a better trainer. Her horses learned faster and performed better. They seemed happier and more confident. Other trainers started noticing Elena's success and asking questions. She was always happy to share what she had learned. She said that good information should be shared, not hoarded. If knowledge about horse vision could help more horses, then she wanted that knowledge to spread as far as possible. The book that Sarah and James wrote together was published 1 year after the conference. It was called Through Their Eyes: Understanding Horse Vision. The book became surprisingly popular. It sold not just to horse owners, but also to people who were simply interested in animal behavior and perception. Several universities started using it as a textbook in veterinary and animal science courses. Sarah and James were interviewed on podcasts and television shows. The topic of horse vision which had been obscure and academic, became part of mainstream conversation. Sarah continued her research with James at the university. They expanded their studies to include other aspects of horse perception. They studied how horses heard sounds differently than humans. They investigated how horses processed smells and used their sense of touch. Each new study revealed more ways that horses experienced the world differently from their human companions. But vision remained Sarah's primary focus because it affected so many aspects of horse behavior and care. One of the most interesting discoveries was about how horses saw in very low light conditions. They worked with horses at night, using special cameras to record what the horses did in darkness. Horses could navigate confidently in light levels where humans were essentially blind. Their pupils could open very wide to gather more light. Their topitum lucidum reflected light back through their retinas for a second pass. These adaptations made horses excellent night vision animals. This explained historical accounts of horses being reliable guides at night. Before electric lights, people often depended on their horses to find the way home in darkness. The horses were not using some mysterious sixth sense. They were simply using their superior night vision. They could see the trail when their human riders could not. Understanding this made Sarah appreciate even more how much humans had historically depended on horses without truly understanding their capabilities. Sarah also studied how horses saw in bright sunlight. She found that horses had better protection against bright light than humans did. Their pupils could close to very small openings to limit light intake. This meant horses were comfortable in bright conditions that made humans squint and struggle. But it also meant that horses' eyes took longer to adjust when moving between bright and dark areas. When a horse entered a barn from bright sunlight, it needed time for its eyes to adjust to the dimmer interior. Impatient handlers who rushed horses into dark spaces were not considering this visual adjustment period. All of this research reinforced a central theme. Horses were not broken humans. They were a different species with different sensory capabilities. Expecting horses to behave like humans or judging horses by human standards was fundamentally unfair. Horses had their own ways of perceiving and responding to the world. Those ways had been shaped by millions of years of evolution. They were not better or worse than human ways. They were simply different. Sarah thought often about the ethical implications of this knowledge. Humans had power over horses. Humans decided where horses lived, what they ate, what work they did, and how they were treated. With this power came responsibility. Humans had a duty to make decisions that considered horse needs and experiences, not just human preferences and convenience. Understanding horse vision was part of fulfilling that responsibility. She gave a talk about this topic at a conference on animal welfare. She argued that creating good environments for horses required understanding their perceptual world. A stable or arena that looked safe and comfortable to human eyes might be stressful for horse eyes if it had flickering lights, confusing color patterns, or disturbing UV reflections. Good horse welfare meant thinking beyond human perception and considering the animal's actual experience. The talk was well received, but some people pushed back. They said that wild horses had to deal with all kinds of visual challenges in nature. Why should domestic horses need everything to be perfect? Sarah understood this concern. She was not arguing that horses were fragile or needed everything to be comfortable. Wild horses were incredibly tough and adaptable, but wild horses had choices. If something in their environment bothered them, they could move somewhere else. Domestic horses did not have that choice. They lived where humans put them. This meant humans should be thoughtful about the environments they created. Sarah also emphasized that understanding horse vision was not about making things perfect. It was about making things reasonable. Eliminating flickering lights was not coddling horses. It was removing a source of visual confusion that humans had accidentally created. Using appropriate colors for jumps and obstacles was not babying horses. It was providing clear visual information that helped horses perform well. These changes benefited both horses and humans. Horses were calmer and more confident. Humans achieved better results with less frustration. As Sarah's work became more well-known, she started receiving invitations to consult on larger projects. A company that designed equestrian facilities hired her to review their standard designs. She identified several common features that could be improved based on horse vision science. Lighting systems that caused less flicker. Paint colors that worked better for dichromatic vision. Materials that did not create confusing UV patterns. The company implemented her suggestions and used them in their marketing. They found that customers appreciated the scientific approach to horse comfort. An organization that certified horse trainers asked Sarah to develop a curriculum on horse vision. She created a 4-hour course that covered all the basics. The course included lectures, demonstrations, and hands-on activities. Trainers who completed the course earned a certification in vision-aware horsemanship. The program was successful, and other training organizations started offering similar courses. Sarah hoped that within a few years, knowledge of horse vision would be standard for anyone working professionally with horses. Looking back on everything that had happened since that first day with Thunder, Sarah felt amazed at how far things had come. She had started with one confused horse owner and one mysterious behavioral problem. Now, thousands of people around the world were thinking about horse vision. Stables were being redesigned. Training methods were being updated. Scientific knowledge was being applied in practical, helpful ways. The gap between human understanding and horse experience was narrowing. But Sarah knew there was still much work to do. Most horse owners still did not know about the differences in horse and human vision. Most stables were still designed only with human eyes in mind. Most training methods still assumed horses saw the world the same way humans did. Changing these deep-rooted assumptions would take time. It would take continued education and advocacy. It would take patience and persistence. Sarah was committed to this work for the long term. She planned to continue her research, write more books and articles, give more presentations, and consult on more projects. She wanted to reach as many people as possible with the message that horses see the world differently and that this difference matters. Every horse owner who learned to see through their horse's eyes would become a better caretaker. Every trainer who understood horse vision would be more effective and fair. Every stable designed with horse perception in mind would be a more comfortable home for the horses living there. One afternoon, Sarah visited a riding school for children. She had been invited to give a simple presentation about horse vision to a group of young riders. She kept her talk basic and fun. She showed pictures and videos. She let the kids look through the dichromatic vision filters. She explained how horses could see in almost every direction at once. The children were fascinated. They asked dozens of questions. They wanted to know everything about how horses saw the world. After the presentation, a girl about 10 years old approached Sarah. She said that learning about horse vision made her understand her pony better. Her pony sometimes got scared of things the girl could not see. Before today, the girl thought her pony was just being silly. Now she understood that the pony was probably seeing something real. She said she would be more patient and understanding from now on. She thanked Sarah for teaching her this important lesson. This interaction reminded Sarah why her work mattered. Knowledge created compassion. Understanding created patience. When people learned that horses perceived the world differently, they stopped making unfair judgments. They stopped expecting horses to behave like humans. They started appreciating horses for what they actually were. Incredible animals with their own ways of sensing and experiencing reality. Sarah drove home that evening feeling content. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors of orange and pink. She thought about how horses would see the sunset differently than she did. The reds would look more yellow to their dichromatic vision. But they might see UV patterns in the clouds that she could not perceive. They would notice small movements of birds against the sky that her eyes would miss. Same sunset, two different experiences of it. This was the fundamental truth that Sarah wanted everyone to understand. Humans and horses could share the same physical space, but inhabit different perceptual worlds. Neither world was the correct world or the true world. They were just different ways of experiencing reality, each shaped by different evolutionary pressures and biological structures. Recognizing this difference, respecting it, and accounting for it in how humans treated horses was what good horsemanship truly meant. Marcus sent Sarah a text message that evening. He thanked her again for solving the mystery with Thunder 2 years ago. He said that her work had not only helped his stable, but it also deepened his appreciation for horses. He understood now that every time he looked at his horses, they were looking back at him with eyes that saw a different world. This knowledge made him respect them more, care for them better, and marvel at the ancient partnership between humans and horses. Sarah smiled as she read the message. She typed a reply, thanking Marcus for being willing to learn and change. Then she added something that captured her philosophy. The horses haven't changed. They've always seen the world this way. We're the ones who change by finally paying attention to what they actually see instead of assuming they see what we see. That's all they ever needed from us. Attention, understanding, respect for their reality. We're finally giving them that, and everything is better for it. She sent the message and put her phone away. Outside her window, night was falling. Somewhere, horses were seeing perfectly well in darkness that would blind their human companions. They were detecting movements too small for human eyes. They were processing visual information in ways human brains could never fully comprehend. And now, finally, humans were beginning to understand and appreciate these remarkable abilities. The vision science that nobody had told people about was becoming common knowledge. The things horses saw that humans did not were finally being recognized and respected, and that made all the difference.